TV. Just finished watching the penultimate, second to last episode of Mad Men ever, and man, I do not know how I feel about this one. It was strange. I mean, not strange in like, every season of Mad Men has like the one weird episode, like the LSD episode and that kind of thing. I just, keeping in the back of my head that this is one episode away from the end, I didn't feel like there was as much of a driving force as some of the other episodes this season. We didn't see really any of McCann. I think Pete's story is drawing to a kind of interesting conclusion. It was kind of weird not to see any Joan, any Peggy, any Roger, none of that at all. I really hope they're not done. Dawn's story is just another, misadventure in solitude, which I guess is fine. Betty's story I had problem with primarily from the perspective of the writing and the plot of it, because first of all, this is AMC, and it's really strange to have essentially exactly the same story that Walter White has at the beginning of Breaking Bad put on a totally different character in Betty Francis, and like all the way down to the whole, I don't want to go through chemo and that whole kind of thing. What kind of life will I be living? It feels random, and not in the kind of like, yes, of course, cancer and finding out you only have a few months to live is random in real life, but it doesn't. It's not bringing the story to an interesting conclusion for me. Man, it's hard to talk about this. Nothing about this episode was really pulling me along. And then, like, the pacing was weird. The length was weird. It got done at 11:10. Not sure why that was happening. But, maybe I kind of said this during the second last episode of Breaking Bad 2, which was the one in New Hampshire, which is that, maybe in retrospect I'll look at this and it will all makes sense, and I will feel like this was a very necessary step toward the inevitable but surprising conclusion that we're going to get next week. But I don't know. This episode I'm giving 3 stars with a confidence of 1. Just saw the latest episode of Game of Thrones. This one was called Kill the Boy, and I liked it. This one was a little bit more interesting than last week, but I guess it had some really good scenes, but not a lot of forward momentum for the plot. Stannis is finally leaving Castle Black, so that's good. By the way, it was great to see him get in the little lesser versus fewer grammatical check there. That's something my wife does to me all the time. Seeing Jon ride out into the wild to try to collect all the wildlings, because he knows that they're basically going to become a warg or White Walker army should they all die out there, is kind of interesting. I can't believe I don't remember if that happened or not in the book. It was kind of cool having Maester Aemon getting the news about Daenerys and everything happening in Meereen. Daenerys marrying someone in Meereen, I don't remember that from the book, and that seems totally unnecessary, especially if she ever wants to go to Westeros. Why would she marry someone in the city? I think it's totally fine to open the fighting pits, and based on what we're seeing from Ser Jorah, I think that he's probably going to get involved in the fighting pits and want to do Daenerys some final honor and die, because he knows he's going to be dying anyway, because he's got the dragon skin. The Stoneman stuff is kind of cool. I was more excited by the visuals of Valyria than the actual content of what was happening there. It seemed like a really potentially dangerous shortcut to be taking, and I'm not quite sure why Ser Jorah felt the need to go through there, unless he really was looking for some kind of trinket or something to find that would be like, hey, this is from your homeland, please take me back. But yeah, I have no idea how him and Tyrion are going to get over to Meereen now. Also, I wonder where Varys is he going to get there before them? I really hope he's not out of the picture, because he's a fantastic character. Really nothing in King's Landing this week at all. The stuff in the north was kind of fascinating. I definitely find Sansa to be a far more interesting character now than early on, because she's had so many horrible things happen to her, and I hate to say that makes her more interesting, but obviously it's fascinating to take a character that comes from a very privileged life and is able to dream about her handsome prince and to completely shatter all these realities. And I mean, it is almost cruel to have her go from the Hound and Joffrey to Peter and now Roose Bolton and the people that murdered her mother and her brother. And then, she thinks, of course, that Theon also murdered Bran and Rickon, and I can't even tell at this point if Theon remembers whether or not he did. But there's some interesting stuff there. There's a lot of room for speculation and trying to figure out who knows what. So I'm enjoying all of that. I'm curious where this is all going to go. If I had to predict, Sansa is going to light a candle in the broken tower. Brienne is going to come try to rescue her. I think Brienne's probably going to fail. Something horrible might happen to her. a la the books. I do remember something with that. I'm trying to think about what I'm looking forward to right now. I guess it's Stannis getting to Winterfell. I mean, it would be kind of interesting if we have a bit of a collision there. We haven't heard from Theon's sister in a long time, Yara. I forget what her name was in the book, but I think in the show they're calling her Yara. And to see her come to Winterfell at the same time as Stannis, at the same time as Brienne, that could be really interesting. And that might even be the 9th episode of this season. We'll see, though. So anyway, Game of Thrones, enjoying it very much. And I give this episode 4 stars with the confidence of 3.